It's that time of year. Well, at least it is for me. I know everyone has their own ideas about the perfect time to make Christmas cards, but for my church Christmas card project, the delivery deadline is now. As usual, I got a good start early in the year, and then I kind of stalled over the summer, which meant I still had about 90 cards to make when I got back from Myrtle Beach a couple of weeks ago. When I was making that last batch for this year, I was still feeling really excited about the watercolor technique that I tried last week. So I pulled out some watercolor cardstock. I decided to experiment with a few little different twists from last week, and the first was that I only taped this around the outside. The next twist is that I'm using some watercolor powders instead of ink refills. These Nuvo shimmer powders have shimmer built right in, and I tapped some of each out into a plastic palette. I've got Maroon Spark, Atlantis Burst, and Green Parade. Another change from last week is that instead of doodling, I'm planning to create stripes of color, so I've got this wide brush. I want to have my stripes overlapping so I get some really nice color blends, but this would also be pretty with narrower stripes and less overlap. Already I've noticed that I've got some red powder in my green well, and that is not going to go well at all. I moved over to the Atlantis, which is quite a bright aqua blue. I taped my paper down so that the smooth side is up this time, and I'm noticing quite a difference from last week. It almost looks like it's resisting the color or something. Next, I went in for that green and I hoped for the best. Nope, that's gone quite gray, hasn't it? It's not ugly, but it's definitely not green. And I really want green. These colors are also a little softer than I want, so I gave the whole panel a quick dry and then I started over with a second coat of color. After the red, I put some fresh green powder into a clean well, and I can see that it's definitely greener, but it's a lot darker than I was thinking it was going to be, more of a forest green. Although I'm sure the gray underneath is contributing to that. I moved back onto my Atlantis, and it may not look like it, but I'm actually trying to use less water than I did last week. This brush definitely seems to hold a lot of water, and overall, I do think it's turning out to be quite pretty. Now I'm trying to get 16 cards out of this panel. Sometimes when I get to this point of the year, the final card design, or maybe even the final 2 card designs, are often extremely simple because of the time pressure. The cards I made earlier have a lot more design elements and time put into them, but if I can get 16 cards out of this one panel, then I can achieve fast and beautiful, I hope. While my panel was still quite wet, I splattered some gold watercolor over top. See how it's just kind of spreading out almost into star shapes? I then let that dry completely, and I came back in and I did the exact same thing. But now because the panel's dry, the splatters are staying shiny and round on top of the colors. I let that layer dry as well. Then I got out some jungle leaf acrylic paint and a big stencil. This one's from Joggles. It's by Karen Tamir, and I think it may be retired, but you can see that it's well loved. I pounced some paint through the areas of the stencil that had green paint underneath to add a little depth and interest to the background, and also to reinforce that that color is indeed green. I'm trying to keep in mind that I'll be cutting this down to 16 panels, and I want to be sure that each one has some of each layer of design that I'm adding. Next, I grabbed the mid-century star and ball stencil from a Colorful Life Designs and some cherry pie paint. I just want the stars here, and at first I thought I could just be careful with my blending, but in the end it was easier to add some mint tape and mask off the one star. I kept the stars mostly on the pink areas of the panel, and again, I tried to make sure that there were enough of them that each of my cards will at least get part of a star on it. And then next, my favorite Changing Dot stencil from a Colorful Life Designs and the white paint. This white is not a shimmery white, and I'm hoping it's a little brighter than the shimmer white that I used last week, although I did like that as well. I'm running my dots horizontally here, but they will be vertical on the cards when I'm finished because of the way I'm planning to trim it down. Did you see that? I just put my sponge in the cherry pie paint, and so now I've got pink dots instead of white right here. And really for the rest of the time, since that paint is on the sponge. It's okay, but I'm definitely going to need to pay better attention in the future. And then for my final touch, some gold. I ordered that Kuretake gold that Denise loves so much, and I grabbed an All in Create stencil with some small dots. It also has big dots, but I don't want quite that much gold. So I'll move my stencil around a bit and try and keep it in the smaller dots areas. Oh, that's really pretty. It matches the watercolor splatter pretty well too, and it's just going to add the perfect amount of festive shine. I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing you the assembly of these. You know how it goes. Although this year was the first year I actually bought card bases rather than making them. That may be a subtle difference to you, but these ones were very inexpensive and already cut and folded, which really does save some time. They're a really nice weight too, and I would be tempted to use them all the time, except that I found that they're quite a gray blue-white, rather than the bright white I normally use. But they're a great option for a project like this, and I also cut my panels from them so they would match, and I stamped a retired neat and tangled sentiment with black ink. I cut my panel into 16 strips that were 1 inch wide by 4.5 inches long, and then I cut some pearl gold strips at 1.25 inches by 4.5 inches. I suppose I could have cut very narrow gold strips to put on each side of the colorful strip, but I find it fiddly to tape down narrow strips sometimes, so it's just easier this way. And from that same gold pearl cardstock, I get 16 little nativity scenes. I think this one's an old tailored expressions die, but I couldn't find it on her site anymore. And here's how this turned out. Isn't that pretty? I think it was the perfect compromise between getting 16 cards done in an afternoon, but still having some fun and feeling good that I put some effort into them. Of course, you could be even quicker with patterned paper if that's what you like to use. I had some small leftovers from that colorful panel and I couldn't bear to throw them away. So stick around for a sec and I'll show you that too. And while you're here, I'll just quickly show you the other cards I made for this year. Each year I make about 150 cards and I donate them to my church. We ask people to donate toward this project to raise money for the kids programs that we have. The pastors write a letter and put it inside the card and send it to each family in the church. The original idea was that rather than each family spending money on buying and sending cards to other church families, they would donate that money to the church, then get one card from the church family. It's become a long-standing tradition and one I really enjoy. And here's the little leftovers I had. I had originally cut each strip to 5 inches long, so I had a bunch of these little 1 by 1/2 inch pieces left over. Now, I normally don't keep things this small, but they're so pretty. So I cut 2 dots from each one, and that gave me 30. So I cut 6 more dots from the gold cardstock to create a grid of 36 dots. And of course, the problem with creating a grid like this is spacing, right? So I used this pegboard cover plate die from Altenew to help me with that. I popped up each dot with a piece of foam tape, and then I glued the pegboard piece to a square that I had cut with 2 dotted edge dies to create that kind of double frame that you can see. And I finished it with a Concord and 9th thanks die cut. Do you make Christmas cards? Are you finished? Are you ready to get started? Or do you wait until the last minute? I've got a whole playlist filled with tips for making multiples. These videos are mostly older church Christmas card designs, but the tips will work for any time you need to make a whole bunch of cards quickly. I'll see you over there. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.